What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We got two reviews for our two Steelbooks from Best Buy today. These are both Warner Brothers releases. We have reviews for both the Goonies 4K Steelbook. Look at that shine from that natural light. We also have a review of Beetlejuice 4K Steelbook. Best Buy exclusive. We got reviews for both of them. But before we do, if you like the channel, if you like what I'm doing, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. Please go ahead and like this video. Also comment down below what you thought of either or of these releases, or both of them if you have them. If you have the Steelbook, if you have the standard edition, either way, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Also, if you want to support the channel, the best way that you can do so is to either share this video or subscribe, or some combination of both, which would be great. Anyways, thank you very much. Let's get to the reviews. So I'm going to start today by talking about the Goonies. Now, this is a Best Buy exclusive Steelbook, so you can only get this from them, but you can also buy a standard edition of the 4K disc. Comes with the Blu-ray disc as well. There's nothing in here that isn't in the standard edition of the 4K release. So either or, it just depends. If you collect Steelbooks, I will say this one's a good one. I love this design. Skull, you got the two swords. This is a good design. Never say die. I mean, it's awesome. It's a matte finish, so you don't have to worry too much about fingerprints. You're getting a little bit of shine there, but we love it when they shine, don't we? They look like diamonds. Look at there's your side spine right there, the Goonies. And then the back design is basically just the amulet there. And on the inside, I'll show this. I showed this during the haul video. I'll show it again. I mean, why not? That's what we're here for. There's your image right there. And that's what's on the inside. So honestly, the packaging here, standard fare when it comes to Steelbooks. This is exactly how all Steelbooks are packaged on the inside. But I will say this design is unique enough, and I really enjoy it, that this is a pickup if you're a Steelbook collector in terms of just the physical packaging. But now let's talk about what's inside the packaging. Let's talk about the movie itself. So the Goonies is a movie. It came out in 1985, which just so happens to be the year I was born. So happy birthday, Goonies. Happy birthday, me. The movie was directed by Richard Donner, okay? But it's from the minds of Christopher Columbus and Steven Spielberg. So what does that mean? Well, that just means that Christopher Columbus wrote the screenplay, and Steven Spielberg had some input into the story itself. And it shows. It definitely shows. Spielberg loves telling stories about kids, and you get a story about kids. Richard Donner also, I believe, directed Home Alone. I'm not 100% on that, but I think he did. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But if he did, I get the inspiration. It's not similar to Home Alone, but it is similar to Home Alone, right? You got a bunch of kids running from some bad guys, and the bad guys kind of get a little roughed up as they chase the kids. That's kind of what you get here. Basically, just to go over a little bit of a brief overview of the story here, you have a set of kids. They all grow up in the same town. It turns out that some developers want to tear down their parents' houses and build. And, you know, obviously that's going to force the kids to move. So the kids find a treasure map in an attic, and they basically decide to go search for the treasure. At the same time, you have these bad guys recently broke out of prison and committed a robbery, and they are trying to count money down in the cavern that the treasure's buried. So you got the kids kind of running into these adults. The adults then find out about the treasure, so they want the treasure, and obviously a bunch of shenanigans happen along the way. You know, as I say that out loud to you, I think to myself, there's no way that, you know, that story sounds kind of goofy, and it does. You're taking two things, you're putting them together there, but it works relatively well. One of the things that I heard about this movie going in was you had to like this movie as a kid in order to appreciate it as an adult, because some of it's just going to seem so zany and goofy and out there that as an adult you're going to watch this and you're going to think that was kind of stupid. While I will appreciate that viewpoint, I'll also say that that is false, because I did not like this movie when I was a kid. I actually thought it was scary, and I hated it. And as an adult, I watched it, and I enjoyed it. I had fun. The characters just work here, guys. I hate kids in movies. It's just a thing with me. I think kids are terrible actors, and when you put them out there with a lot of dialogue, it always sounds bad. I just, to me, I'll say more often than not, because again, Stranger Things is pretty good. More often than not, when you have kids with a lot of dialogue, it's just not well done. This movie was well done. It really was. I think it's also important to note that a lot of careers were kind of spawned from this movie. Corey Feldman, Sean Astin. I mean, when I say those names to you, you probably think of some bigger things, and they were in this movie. So it's important to note that this movie was a vehicle to drive some of these young actors forward who would become bigger actors as they grow up. And Sean Astin conveniently is involved in Stranger Things, which you can tell draws a lot of inspiration from this movie. So that's just an interesting note here. Look, I'll say this, right? You have to suspend your disbelief a little bit to enjoy this movie 100% of the way. But you also have to remember that back in the 80s, this movie was kind of a kids movie. So the one rule with kids movies when you're an adult should be, can I stomach this movie? Is this a movie that I can sit through if my kid has it on repeat 50 times? The answer to that question is, for the most part, yes. I think this works as an adult movie. There's enough adult humor in this movie that you're going to find yourself entertained. And I actually think it's a little dark for kids. But back in the 80s, things were a lot different. And, what was a kids movie would probably be more of an adult movie today. So you take that for what it's worth. I don't know how to tell you to raise your kids or to what you let your kids watch, but I will say there's some dark elements in this movie. There's some death. I mean, if you're okay with it, it's a fun, zany movie. Your kids are going to enjoy it, and you probably won't hate it either. I mentioned the acting. I'll say it again. It was entertaining. It was fun. You have a good time. You go on this adventure with them. The music's not bad. Cyndi Lauper did an original song for this movie. She did some of the soundtrack. It's okay. It's very 80s. The whole movie is very 80s. I should say that too. So you can't escape that. Anyways, let's talk a little bit now about the video, the restoration itself. So this was filmed with a natural. This is film, right? I think 35 millimeter film. And this is a new 4K restoration of this done by Warner Brothers. So there are just some notes that I think are really important when you're considering purchasing this, specifically upgrading your Blu-ray. This is a heck of a lot better than the Blu-ray. The 2010 Blu-ray, in my opinion, was terrible. Honestly, it was one tiny step above DVD. I did not think it looked good. I just thought it looked terrible. So this is an upgrade from that for sure. There's no question about it. This is a much, much better restoration, which I guess you would expect because I'm talking about a 4K disc. But no, it honestly is. And the film, it was filmed with a natural softness. So you are losing some details because of that. But trust me, it's detailed enough. You're going to be able to see, you're going to be able to see details in the kids' clothing. You're going to be able to see details in some of the sets that aren't too dark, which I will get to in a second. You're going to see that detail, but it is soft. There is a softness baked in. So you gotta be prepared. This isn't going to be a demo disc in any way, shape, or form, right? The HDR10 is great. It's a naturally dull movie in terms of colors. So you don't get a lot of like popping colors, but the color palette is pretty well done. It's more neutral, more dull, but you know what? The HDR10 does help. Now, one negative I will say, this movie is dark, and the HDR enhancing those blacks just makes it a little darker. So you might actually have to go in and adjust some of your blackness levels with your HDR. I'm just going to say that because I think it's important to note. This movie can be very, very dark. I happened to watch this movie during the day, and there was a little bit of glare coming in from my window. It almost made the movie unwatchable. So you got to ding it for that because this movie is dark. And again, the detail is just not all the way there. The audio, listen, it's a passable 5.1 track, okay? This has a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 mix. It is good, not great. I would have really loved to seen an Atmos track or a DTSX track here. Didn't get it. It's a good track. It utilizes different channels, but I will say I had to turn it up for the dialogue. Some of it was a little muddy. Overall, I'm going to give the Goonies a 7 out of 10. I'm going to recommend it, and I'm going to tell you why. The 2010 Blu-ray was so bad that this is definitely worth an upgrade if you're a fan of this film. The extras are not great either. You basically get extras that were on the 2010 Blu-ray, and there's not much here. There's a music video, a short featurette. That's about it. Trailers and all that good stuff. So there's not much to add in the extras. But I will say I still think this is recommended because if you don't own this at all, this is the way you want to buy it, right? The video is decent enough. The audio is decent enough. I would say 7 out of 10, worth a pickup, with one additional caveat. I would hold off if you're not a Steelbook buyer. I do think this is going to drop in price. I don't think I would pay $20 or above for this. I think this is well within that 15 to 20 range. And if you can find it in that price, like $18 might be the sweet spot. And if you can find this at $18, I would say pull the trigger. But otherwise, I would hold off until the price drops on this one. That's my opinion. But again, if you're an avid Steelbook collector, you're probably going to pick this one up regardless, and it's probably going to stay the same price. So now that we talked about the Goonies, let's jump into Beetlejuice. And I actually think this is a huge contrast here, because Beetlejuice looks phenomenal here. I will say, I think the visual, so if what I said about the Goonies, where I said the Goonies looked okay, the details were a little better, the film was too dark, the opposite, man. Beetlejuice, this restoration is phenomenal, okay? They put a lot of time and effort into this, and it shows. Now again, you're dealing with a naturally more colorful movie here. So when comparing the two, you do have to take that into account. Because this movie is so colorful, the HDR10 is going to really stand out here, and it's going to highlight those colors. And again, if you haven't seen Beetlejuice, the movie is colorful. I mean, it is Tim Burton's first real major film. And it really has a Burton feel to it. I mean, you can tell that his future styles, he adapted from Beetlejuice. This was his stab at kind of that dark comedy style with his visual, with his cinematography and his visual styles of utilizing a lot of colors. You can tell this is where he got it from, because there's a lot of that in this movie. Tim Burton really cut his teeth with Beetlejuice, man. Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, they all really cut their teeth. Alec Baldwin, you know, Gina Davis, not so much. They're good in this film, though. Don't get me wrong. They're good. But Winona Ryder, Michael Keaton, and Tim Burton all kind of cut their teeth on this movie. And this movie, by the way, if we're going to talk a little bit about the story, this movie is so much better than it gets credit for, because of its ability to tie in these negative elements like death. But to be able to take that negative death and spin it into a positive and make it kind of hopeful and funny. And it also kind of churns in music. It's this beautiful blend of horror, comedy, and music that really goes so well together. And I don't think this film gets enough credit for doing that so well. Basic premise or plot, you have a young couple, they're out driving, they get into a crash and they die. Well, they're stuck in the house that they lived in for 125 years. And basically, they haunt the house, right? They're stuck in the house. They can't leave it. If they leave, they end up in this other world. Well, a new family moves in with a daughter. And the new family wants to change the place. They want to make all these different changes. And the ghosts get sick of it. They get tired of it. They want to get these people out. So they hire Beetlejuice. And Beetlejuice is supposed to be the one who comes in and helps them get these people out, where their daughter can see the young couple. She can see the ghosts. So anyways, it goes on and on and on. But that's basically the premise of the story, right? Now, but it's done, again, you're talking about death. And particularly, you're talking about an untimely death of a young couple. And it's handled in such a good way here that honestly, it becomes this beautiful, funny thing. And you end up realizing at the end of the movie, after you've had this good time with this film, I mean, it's a little scary, but it's more comedy than horror. You realize, holy crap, that was actually really tragic. But it's not. And Tim Burton does such a good job with it in this film. Michael Keaton, special shout out to him in this movie, because he plays Beetlejuice so freaking well, man. Beetlejuice is a cult favorite character. When I was a kid, there was a cartoon of Beetlejuice. You have some of the episodes, actually, special features on this disc. I loved that cartoon when I was a kid. I think I was scared of this movie, but I loved that cartoon. So Michael Keaton does such a good job of playing Beetlejuice. He's just this terrible, annoying little jerk, and you can't stand him. But Michael Keaton plays it up to 11, and I'm telling you, it's a really good effort by him. So how does this look? Well, like I said, with all the colors, the HDR really amps those colors up. It looks great. Each world looks different, right? You've got the world of the dead, you've got the world of the living, and each of them has a different color palette that gets played around with. Honestly, the details are so there. I mean, where they're really noticeable, because they're going to be noticeable in the sets and the clothing, all that stuff, right? Facial features. But the detail is really good. And it's really noticeable on Beetlejuice's makeup and his face. He just looks great. You can see the ooze coming out of him. I mean, he looks phenomenal. So there's a lot of fine detail there. There's grain, but it's handled in a way that's appropriate and it looks good. It keeps its cinematic experience there. It feels like real film. The audio, hey, guess what? You didn't get it on the Goonies, but you got an Atmos track here, and it is great because the soundtrack of this movie is phenomenal, and you know the sounds are great. There's a lot of sound effects. There's a lot of like cartoony, zany sound effects, but they're popping from different channels, and you can hear them all around you, and it's really, really great. So the Atmos track here, phenomenal. The only ding I'm gonna give this, the only ding, and I hate it. I hate that they did this because this is such a good release of Beetlejuice. If the Goonies is a wait and see, Beetlejuice is a pickup. But the extras, man, it's all the extras from previous releases and nothing new here. You don't get any featurettes. You basically just get cartoons and trailers. That's it. That's all you get. This could have been a 10 out of 10 masterpiece if we just had better extras. But they didn't do it. They didn't give us better extras, and I'm real disappointed. With all of that said, I'm still saying this is an 8 out of 10. This is a highly recommended pickup because you get beautiful video, beautiful Dolby Atmos track audio, and I would get the Steelbook because I love this artwork. This artwork is so cool. So I would say pick up the Steelbook if you can. If not, standard edition is perfectly fine. Either way, this is an 8 out of 10. This is a highly recommended pickup. So that's all I got for you guys today. More reviews to come throughout the week. We're trying a different structure here. We're going to try and space the reviews out a little bit for you guys. But hopefully you like this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know what you think about Beetlejuice and the Goonies. If you have either of these releases, I would love your comments. Thank you guys very much. I will see you next time.